Today we are going to discuss second and third Silo theorems. So before we come to proof of these theorems, first we note that if G is a group and order of G is equal to P raised to power R, where P is a prime, and the group G is acting on a set X, that is G cross X into X is a group action, then number of elements in X is congruent with number of elements in Y mod P, where Y is the set of G stable elements of X. That is, Y is equal to set of all those elements X belonging to X such that Gx is equal to X for all G belonging to G. That is, Y is the set of G stable elements of X. This is a very important result. We will need this result for proof of second and third Silo theorems. Now let's come to second Silo theorem. Second Silo theorem. The theorem says that let G be a group such that order of this group G is equal to P raised to power n multiplied with Q, where P is a prime and P and Q are co-prime. This means that P raised to power n is the highest power of the prime P, which divides order of the group G. So let G be a group and order of G is equal to P raised to power n into Q, where P is a prime and P and Q are co-prime. If K is a P Silo subgroup of G, and H is a subgroup of G, such that order of H is a power of P, then we have to prove that then H is subset of A K A inverse for some A belonging to G. So this is the first part of the theorem we have to prove, and in particular we shall prove that in particular any two P Silo subgroups of G are conjugate. Any two P silo subgroups of G are conjugate. So this is the statement of the theorem. Let's see the proof. So proof goes as follows. We consider the set of distinct left cosets of K in G, and we call this set as X. So let X be the set of distinct left cosets of K in G. This is what we are saying, that is X is equal to all the left cosets of K. In fact, distinct left cosets of K where A belongs to G. And we know that number of these distinct left cosets is called index of K in G. So then total number of elements in X is equal to, we write it as index of K in G. And therefore total number of elements in X is equal to order of G divided by order of K. This is by Lagrange's theorem. And this is equal to, we know that order of G is equal to P raised to power N Q, and order of K is equal to P raised to power N, because K is P silo subgroup, and this is equal to Q. We know that since P and Q are co-prime, since P does not divide Q, therefore P does not divide number of elements in X, because number of elements in X is equal to Q. So we note this result as result 1. Next, we consider group action on X by the subgroup H. So now consider action of H on X given by an element of H and an element of X, which will be of this type, left coset of K. This will go to H A K. So this is the way we define group action. So having defined this group action in this way, let Y be the set of let Y be the set of H stable elements of X. Let me write it in detail. That is, y is equal to those elements belonging to x, so that when we act h on them we obtain the same element. So that is those left cosets of k belonging to x such that when we act any element of h on ak we obtain ak, and this is for all h belonging to h. Then, as we have noted above, number of elements in x would be congruent with number of elements in y mod p. We have noted this thing in the beginning. But from 1, let me show you what 1 is. In 1, we have noted that p does not divide number of elements in x. So, but from 1, p does not divide, but from 1, p does not divide number of elements in x. Therefore, number of elements in y cannot be equal to 0. Therefore, number of elements in y cannot be equal to 0. This will be 0 only if p divides number of elements in x. Since p does not divide number of elements in x, therefore number of elements in y is not equal to 0, and therefore y is non-empty. Therefore y is non-empty. Y is not equal to 5. So there is some element in y. So having said that, let's take let's take some element from y. Therefore, since y is non-empty, therefore there exists an element ak belonging to y. Since this element belongs to y, therefore y is set of h stable elements of x. So there exists an element ak belonging to y such that HAK is equal to AK, and this is for all H belonging to H, and therefore when we can write this thing HAK is equal to AK as therefore HAK is equal to AK for all H belonging to H, and therefore you can easily see that therefore HA belongs to AK. This is again for all H belonging to H, and therefore H belongs to AK A inverse for all H belonging to H, and therefore H is subset of AK A inverse, and this is exactly what we had to prove as required. So we have proved that if K is a p-silo subgroup of G and H is a subgroup of G of order a power of p, then H is subset of AK A inverse. Next we have to prove that any two p-silo subgroups of G are conjugate. So for this purpose, let L be a p-silo subgroup of G. Now, let L be a p-silo subgroup, of G. Then, as we have proved above, since L is p-silo subgroup of G and K is also p-silo subgroup of G, therefore we can write L instead of H here. Therefore L is subset of AK A inverse for some A belonging to G. For some A belonging to G. This is what we have already proved above. So L is subset of AK A inverse. Now, since L is p-silo subgroup, therefore order of L is equal to p raised to power n, and therefore order of L is equal to p raised to power n, and we know that K is also p-silo subgroup, therefore order of K is also p raised to power n, and we know that order of a group and its conjugate, they are always same. So therefore L is equal to AKA inverse. Reason is that L is subset of AKA inverse, and number of elements in AKA inverse is equal to p raised to power n, and number of elements in L is also equal to p raised to power n, and this is possible only if L is equal to AKA inverse, and therefore any two p-silo subgroups are conjugate. Therefore any two p-silo subgroups are conjugate. So let me recall what we have proved. We have proved that if K is a p-silo subgroup and H is a subgroup of prime power, H is a subgroup whose order is power of that prime p, then H is contained in AKA inverse, and if we are given two p-silo subgroups, then they are conjugate to each other. So this was proof of second silo theorem. Let's have a corollary about this particular theorem, and corollary says that let G be a group, let G be a group and order of G is equal to p raised to power n q, where p is prime and p and q are co-primes. Let K be a p-silo subgroup of G, a p-silo subgroup of G, such that K is normal subgroup of G. K is p-silo subgroup and is normal subgroup of G. Then K is the only p-silo subgroup of G. Then K is the only p-silo subgroup of G. Let's see the proof. Proof goes as follows. Since K is a normal subgroup of G, therefore left cosets of K are equal to right cosets of K with elements of G for all G belonging to G. Since K is normal subgroup, so its left and right cosets are equal, and therefore we can write GK G inverse is equal to K. K is equal to GK inverse for all G belonging to G because K is normal subgroup of G. Now let K be another p-silo subgroup of G. Now let L be another or maybe same another p-silo subgroup of G. Then we know that if we are given two p-silo subgroups, then they are conjugate to each other. Therefore, L is equal to AKA inverse for some A belonging to G. But G inverse is equal to K for all elements of G. Therefore, A inverse will be equal to K as well. Therefore, AKA inverse is equal to K and this is equal to L. So, therefore, L and K are same. So, if we are given a p-silo subgroup of a group G which is normal subgroup of G as well, then that subgroup is the only p-silo subgroup of the group G. So this is very important result which says that p-silo subgroup, if it is normal, then it is unique. So a group G, a finite group G can have only one normal p-silo subgroup. So if a p-silo subgroup is normal, then it is unique. Let me note it. If p-silo subgroup is normal, then it is unique. So this was second silo theorem and a corollary to it. Now we come to third silo theorem. So before proving third silo theorem, let's recall a result from group theory. So let's have a note. If G is a finite group, if G is a finite group and H is subgroup of G, then H is normal subgroup of normalizer of H. Recall that we have defined what normalizer of H is. Normalizer of H consists of all those elements of the group G for which left and right cosets of H are equal. And you can easily see that if H is subgroup of G, then H is a normal subgroup of its normalizer. It is very simple to see from this particular condition. This exactly says that H is a normal subgroup of its normalizer. So having said that, let's come to third isomorphism theorem. Sorry, third Silo theorem. So now we come to third Silo theorem. Third Silo theorem. The theorem says that let G be a group such that order of G is equal to P raised to power n multiplied with Q, where P is prime and P and Q are co-primes. Let R be the number of P Silo subgroups of G. Let R be the number of P Silo subgroups of G. That is, there are many P Silo subgroups of the group G. Then what we have to prove is that, first of all, we have to prove that R divides order of G. That is, number of P Silo subgroups divides order of the group. And secondly, we have to prove that number of P Silo subgroups is equal to 1 plus Pk, where K is a non-negative integer. Where K is a non-negative integer. So third Silo theorem says that number of P Silo subgroups divides the order of the group G, and the number of P Silo subgroups is given by this particular formula 1 plus Pk, where K is a non-negative integer. So let's see how proof goes. So let's come to proof of third Silo theorem. For proof, we will consider a P Silo subgroup L. So Let L be a p-silo subgroup of G. Let L be a p-silo subgroup of G. Then we know that order of L must be equal to p raised to power n. This is in fact definition of p-silo subgroup. Then by second silo theorem, we have proved that the set of all p-silo subgroups of G. In fact, in second silo theorem, we have proved that any two p-silo subgroups will be conjugate. So if L is a p-silo subgroup, then all the other p-silo subgroups will be conjugates of L. So by second silo theorem, the set of all p-silo, the set of all p-silo subgroups of G is given by, let's write it by this particular symbol A. This is equal to GL G inverse such that G belongs to G. This is for the reason that we have proved that any two p-silo subgroups are conjugate to each other. So if we are given a p-silo subgroup of group G, then conjugate groups of this particular p-silo subgroup, this particular set will consist of all p-silo subgroups. So this is a very important thing to note, so that this set A consists of all the p-silo subgroups. Therefore, number of elements in A is equal to R. This is what we have noted in the theorem. R stands for total number of p-silo subgroups, and these are all the p-silo subgroups. So number of elements in A is equal to R. Secondly, now we consider group action. In fact, we act G on this particular set A. So consider group action. So we are going to act G on this particular set A. So this is the group action we are going to consider. Let's see what this group action is going to be. So this group action is given by, given an element of group G and an element of this particular set A, which consists of p-silo subgroups. Let's write that element as Q. Then this order pair will go to GQ G inverse. So this is our group action. We can check it very easily that this is group action. Then orbit of L under this group action. L is that p-silo subgroup we started with. So orbit of L is equal to, we know that what orbit means. We are going to act by all the elements of G on this particular L. So orbit of L is equal to acting all the elements of group G on L. So we will obtain GL G inverse. This is the action. So GL G inverse for all G belong to G such that G belongs to G. So we act every element of G on L. So this is the orbit of L. And note that this orbit is exactly equal to A. So this is equal to A. So orbit of L is equal to A. And stabilizer of L, you know what stabilizer is? Stabilizer is in fact those elements of the group which do not make any change on the element on which they act. So those elements of the group G such that action of these elements on L is equal to L. So this is stabilizer of L, and we know that this is subgroup of G in fact. Now before proving first Silo theorem, we proved a result which says that number of elements in the orbit is equal to index of stabilizer of L in G. So this is a result we already know very well, and this is equal to, by Lagrange's theorem, this is equal to order of G divided by order of stabilizer. And therefore, now orbit of L is equal to A. So we can write it as number of elements in A is equal to order of group G divided by order of stabilizer of L. And therefore, order of number of elements in A, we know that that is equal to A, and therefore, sorry, R, that is equal to R. Number of elements in A is equal to R. So R is equal to number of elements in G, or order of group G, divided by order of SL. And therefore, we can bring SL to the number of elements in SL, or order of SL, to the left hand side, and we can take R to the denominator. So therefore, order of SL is equal to order of group G divided by R. And therefore, R divides order of G, because R in the denominator of order of G gives order of SL. So therefore, R divides order of G. R divides order of G. Let me write it in words. That is, R divides order of G. And we can repeat it by saying that number of P silo subgroups divides order of the group G. It is just to emphasize. So this completes the first part of the theorem, that is third silo theorem, which says that number of P silo subgroups divides the order of the group. Now we come to second part, and second part is about number of p silo subgroups. That is how many p silo subgroups are going to be there. So let's come to this particular proof. We have to prove that R is equal to 1 plus pk. This is what we have written, that R is equal to 1 plus pk. Let me show you. This is what we have to prove. We have to prove that R is equal to 1 plus pk, where k is a non-negative integer. So we have to prove this particular formula. So let's come to proof of this particular formula. So for second part of the theorem, first we shall prove that for second part of the theorem, first we shall prove that. So anyway, for second part of the theorem, first we shall prove that we will need this result in fact. So first we shall prove that P does not divide R. P, the prime P, does not divide R. P does not divide R. This is the way we write in symbols. So prime P does not divide the number of P silo subgroups. So this is what we have to prove first. So for this, note that since L, this is the P silo subgroup we have chosen in the beginning, and just note that L is subgroup of normalizer of L. We have noted this thing earlier. Let me recall you what normalizer of L is going to be, where normalizer of L is equal to, this is the set, the all those elements of the group G for which AL is equal to LA, and you can easily see that normalizer L is subgroup of normalizer, because if you take any element of L, with that element, if you take left coset and right coset, they will be equal. In fact, if you take an element of L and take a left coset, that will be equal to L, and you take right coset with an element of L, that will again be equal to L. So L is subgroup of normalizer of L. So having said that, therefore order of L divides order of NL. This is by Lagrange's theorem. Order of subgroup divides order of the group. So since L is subgroup of NL, therefore order of L divides order of NL, and therefore, and we know that if order of L divides order of NL, then order of NL can be written as alpha into order of L. This is a very simple thing from your primary school knowledge. So having said that, now note that normalizer of L, as we have noted above, is equal to, this is equal to those elements of group G, A belonging to G, such that AL is equal to LA, and this is equal to those elements of group G such that AL, A inverse is equal to L. And you know this is by just taking A to the left hand side by its inverse. And this is equal to stabilizer of L. This is exactly the stabilizer of L because this is the group action. So those elements of group G which do not, so that their action do not affect on the L remains as L. So this is in fact stabilizer of L. So normalizer of L is exactly the same thing as stabilizer of L, and therefore from we have earlier noted that number of elements in stabilizer is equal to number of elements in group G divided by R. We obtain, instead of place NL here at this particular place. So from 2 we obtain this particular thing. I'm making slight mistake. Please let me correct it. In fact, we have to use this particular result. We need to replace NL by SL in this particular result. Let me do it again. So from 2, let's take it from 2, we obtain in 2 instead of NL we replace SL. So number of elements in SL is equal to alpha multiplied with number of elements in L. This was because of this particular divisibility, and therefore we can write it as number of elements in G divided by R is equal to alpha into number of elements in L, and this is in fact what I have written here. This result we have already derived on previous page, and this is from number of elements in SL is equal to number of elements in G divided by R, and we have done this thing already. Let me show you that. This is what we have proved. R is equal to number of elements in GL divided by number of elements in SL. So we have used this particular result here, and then number of element SL, we took SL to the left hand side and R in the denominator. So this is what we have used. So using this particular thing, we can replace this by this, and therefore now you can bring number of elements in L in the denominator. So number of elements in G or order of G divided by order of L is equal to alpha, and you can take R to the right hand side, and therefore number of elements in G is equal to P raised to power NQ. This is order of the group G. And since L is a P silo subgroup, therefore number of elements in L is P raised to power N. This is the definition of P silo subgroup, and this is equal to alpha R. And you can cancel P raised to power N with P raised to power N. So therefore we obtain Q is equal to alpha R. Now, since P does not divide Q because P and Q are co-prime, so since P does not divide Q, therefore P cannot divide R. Therefore P cannot divide R, because if P divides R, then P will divide Q as well. So let's note it as number 3. So we have proved that P does not divide R. So having noted that particular thing, now we are going to consider an other group action, and we are going to act L on A. So now consider group action. Now consider group action. We are going to act this P silo subgroup L on A. A is the set of all P silo subgroups. So this group action is given by if we are given an element of L and an element of A, let's write it as a Q, then this action will take this element to LQ L inverse. LQ L inverse. So this is the group action we have defined. So having defined this group action, we consider those elements of A which are L stable. So consider the set, let's write it as Y. So consider set Y, the set of L stable elements. L stable elements of A. Because L is acting on A, so we consider L stable elements of A, and let's write what these elements are going to be. So Y is going to be those elements of A such that when we act elements of L on this particular element Q, L, Q, L, this is the group action, we obtain Q. This is for all L belonging to L. So this is set of L stable elements of A, Y. Then we have noted this result in the beginning, and we have already used this result. And the result says that if we have a group action, then number of elements in the set on which the group is acting is congruent with number of stable elements, in this case number of L stable elements mod P. This is the result we have already discussed, and we know that number of elements in A is in fact the set of all p silo subgroups, and total number of p silo subgroups we denoted it by R. So this is equal to R in fact. So R is congruent with Y mod P. But now note that we have proved that P does not divide R. Let me show you. We have proved that P does not divide R. So since P does not divide R, therefore Y number of elements in Y cannot be equal to 0. But P does not divide R, therefore number of elements in Y cannot be equal to 0, because this can be equal to 0 only if P divides R. Since P does not divide R, therefore number of elements in Y cannot be equal to 0, and therefore Y is non-empty. Therefore Y is non-empty. So this means that there is some element in Y. Therefore there exists some element Q belonging to Y, such that, and the property of elements of Y is that when we act on that particular element, result is same element. So this is the group action of L. So since Q belongs to Y and Y is set of L stable elements, therefore L inverse is equal to Q, and this is for all L belonging to L. Or we can write it in this way, that LQ is equal to QL. This is again for all L belonging to L. We have simply just rewritten this thing, and therefore L is subset of normalizer of Q. Note that if you take any element of L and with that element you take left coset of Q or right coset of Q, these two cosets are, left and right cosets are equal. And you know the definition of normalizer. Normalizer is those elements of the group for which left and right cosets are equal. Therefore L is subset of normalizer of Q, and therefore since normalizer of Q is a subgroup and L is subgroup as well, so therefore L is subgroup of normalizer of Q, and we know that normalizer of Q is subgroup of G. But we have already noted that if you are given a group G and a subgroup of this group G, suppose H is subgroup of G, then H is normal subgroup of normalizer of H. H is normal subgroup of normalizer of H. You can see it very easily. We have already discussed that. But Q is normal subgroup of normalizer of Q. Note that Q is normal subgroup. H is normal subgroup of normalizer of H. So Q is normal subgroup of normalizer of Q. And normalizer of Q is subgroup of G. Now L and Q are p silo subgroups of G. Now note that L and Q are p silo subgroups. L is a p silo subgroup we started with, and Q is element of Y, and elements of Y are p silo subgroups. Now L and Q are p silo subgroups of G. L and Q are p silo subgroups of G. Therefore, L and Q are p silo subgroups of NQ as well, are p silo subgroups of NQ as well. You can very easily convince yourself for this particular thing. But Q is, we have already written that Q is normal subgroup of NQ. We have already written this thing. Therefore, Q is the only p silo subgroup of NQ. Therefore, Q is the only p silo subgroup of NQ. We have already proved this thing, that if a p silo subgroup is normal, then this is the only p silo subgroup. Since Q is p silo subgroup of NQ and Q is normal subgroup of NQ, therefore Q is the only p silo subgroup of NQ, and therefore now L is also p silo subgroup of L is also p silo subgroup of NQ, and Q is also p silo subgroup of NQ, but for this particular reason Q is the only p silo subgroup of NQ, therefore L and Q are going to be equal. Therefore L is equal to Q. Let me repeat it. Q is p silo subgroup and is normal subgroup of Q is p silo subgroup of NQ and is normal subgroup of NQ. Therefore, Q is the only p silo subgroup of NQ. L is also p silo subgroup of NQ. Since NQ has only one p silo subgroup, so L and Q are going to be equal. And therefore, now note that since L is equal to Q, therefore number of elements in Y is equal to 1 because there is only one p silo subgroup. So therefore number of elements in Y is equal to 1. Put this particular thing in let's say in 4. So put in 4. Therefore 4 will become R is congruent with 1 mod P. So 4 will become R is congruent with 1 mod P. Therefore, R is congruent with 1 mod P. And therefore, R is equal to 1 plus P multiplied with K, where K is a non-negative integer. This is another way of writing this particular thing, and you know these things very well. So this completes the proof. Now note that third silo theorem gives us a formula for finding number of p silo subgroups. But in fact, this is not exactly the formula which gives exact number of p silo subgroups. In fact, the value of k R is equal to 1 plus pk. Number of p shallow subgroups is equal to 1 plus pk. Now what k is, this is not very much clear. So this is very helpful, in fact, this formula, but this does not, in fact, this does not gives the number of p shallow subgroups, but this gives a way of solving quite many problems about p silo subgroups and about groups being simple. Let me define first what simple group means. Let's have a definition. A group G is called simple if it does not have a non-trivial proper normal subgroup. So that's just simple. So a group which does not have non-trivial proper normal subgroup is called simple group. Let's rephrase it. Or a group G is simple. A group G is simple if G does not have any normal subgroup except this particular trivial subgroup and G itself. So this is definition of simple group. Simple group. So let's see if we can solve few examples. So let's have an example, or let's have a comment. And that comment says that a group of prime order is necessarily simple. A group of prime order is necessarily simple. So this was just a comment. Let's have an example, and we are going to show that there is no simple group of order 200. Show that there is no simple group of order 200. So let's have the solution. So we note that 200 can be factored into 25 into 8. Uh, mm, let's find the symbol. Let G be a group. Let G be a group such that order of G is equal to 200. Then note that order of G is equal to 200, and 200 can be written as 25 multiplied with 8, and this is equal to 25 can be written as 5 raised to power 2 multiplied with 8, and you can note that 5 and 8 are co-prime. This is p raised to power n and this is q, and 5 and 8 are co-prime. Then by first Silo theorem there exist 5 Silo subgroup. Then by first Silo theorem there exists 5 Silo 5 p 5 Silo 5 Silo subgroup of this particular group G, and we also know that, and their number is given by number of 5 Silo subgroups, and their number is given by the formula we have just derived. Number is given by R is equal to 1 plus pk. Remember that pk, and in our case p is equal to 5, so R is equal to 1 plus 5k, 1 plus 5k, where k is a non-negative integer, So R is equal to 1 plus 5k. Also, there is one more thing. R must divide 200. R must divide order of the group. Also, R must divide 200. Now note that R has to divide 200. R is equal to 1 plus 5k. So in order that R, which is equal to 1 plus 5k, this divides 200, k must be equal to 0. Suppose you put k is equal to 1, then this is equal to 6. 6 cannot divide 200. You put k is equal to 2, this is 11. 11 cannot divide 200. You put k is equal to 3, this is equal to 16. And 16 cannot divide 200 as well. And if you put k is equal to 4, this will become 21, and 21 cannot divide 200. So the only way R divides 200 is that k is equal to 0. So the only way that R divides 200 is that k is equal to 0, and therefore R is equal to 1 plus 5 into 0, and this is equal to 1. So there is only one 5 Silo subgroup of G. Therefore, there is only one 5 silo subgroup of G. And we have discussed that if there is only one P silo subgroup, that subgroup is going to be normal. So there is only one 5 silo subgroup of G, and therefore this 5 silo subgroup is normal. Therefore, G has a normal subgroup. Therefore, G is not simple. So, any group of order 200 cannot be simple. So we have proved that any group of order 200 cannot be simple. Let's have an other example, and the example says that show that there can be no simple subgroup of order 30. Show that there can be no simple group of order 30. So for solution, let G be a group and suppose that order of this group G is equal to 30, and you know that 30 can be written as 5 multiplied by 6. 5 multiplied by 6, or if you like, you can write it as 5 raised to power 1 multiplied with 6, and we know that 5 and 6 are co-prime. We have to show that G is not simple. This is what we have to prove. Show that there is no simple group of order 30, since order of G we are supposed to be as 30. We have to prove that G is not simple. So we have to prove that G is not simple. On contrary, we suppose that G is simple. On contrary, we suppose that G is simple. This means that G has exactly one 5 silo subgroup. So this is what simple means, that G has we have to prove that G is not simple. On contrary, suppose that G is simple, or G does not contain a p silo subgroup. So we have to prove that G is not simple. On contrary, suppose that G is simple. Now, first of all, since order of G is equal to 5 raised to power 1 multiplied by 6. Therefore, by first Silo theorem, G has 5 Silo 5 prime 5 Silo subgroups, and order of each of these subgroups is 5 raised to power 1 into this is order, in fact order of the Silo subgroup, P Silo subgroup, 5 raised to whatever power is, that is 5. So order of each 5 Silo subgroup in this case is equal to 5, and their number is given by, the formula R is equal to 1 plus Pk. In this case, P is equal to 5. So this is equal to 1 plus 5k, where k is a non-negative integer. Now, note that we have supposed that G is simple. G is simple. So by definition, we know that a group is simple if it does not have a normal subgroup. Now note that if we put k is equal to 0, then R is equal to 1, which means that there will be one 5 Silo subgroup. And if there is only one P Silo subgroup, that is going to be normal. But we have supposed that G is simple, so G cannot have normal subgroup. So since we have supposed that G is simple, therefore K cannot be equal to 0. K cannot be equal to 0 because if K is equal to 0, then R will be equal to 1 and number of 5 Silo subgroups will be 1, and this 5 Silo subgroup will be normal subgroup, and if it is normal subgroup, in that case the group will not be simple. But we have supposed that G is simple, so K cannot be equal to 0. Therefore, so let's see what K can be. So we cannot choose K is equal to 0. Suppose K is equal to 1. Then one more thing, and R divides 30. We should also note that. Anyway, now for K is equal to 1, R will become 6, and 6 divides 30. Therefore, we can choose K is equal to 1 because if we choose K is equal to 1, then R is equal to 1 plus 5 into 1, and this is equal to 6, and we know that 6 divides 30. So there are 6 5 Silo subgroups. Therefore, there are 6 5 silo subgroups. And the order of each of these subgroups is 5, and order of each of these subgroups is 5. We have written this thing for the reason that if order of a group is a prime number, then that group is cyclic, and the order of every element of that group is 5, in this case 5, that particular prime, whatever is that. So for each of these 6 subgroups, each group has order 5, and for each group, each element has order 5. So, so there are 6 5 silo subgroups, and note that in every subgroup there is identity element. If you remove identity element, then in each of these subgroups there will be 5 elements, each element having order 5. So therefore each of these subgroups has 5 non-identity elements. 5 non-identity elements, each of order 5. Each order of each element is 5, and therefore their total number is their total number is now there are 6 subgroups, and order of each subgroup is 5, and if you take the identity element out, remaining non-identity elements are 4. So number of non-identity elements is equal to 24, and each of these elements is of order 5. So having done that, there are 24 elements, each element having order 5. Secondly, again, order of G is equal to 30, and 30 can be written as 3 multiplied with 10, 3 raised to power n, and we know that 3 and 10 are co-prime, and therefore there are R is equal to 1 plus pk. This will be equal to 1 plus 3k. Many 3 silo subgroups, each having order 3 raised to power 1, 3 raised to power 1, this is the order, is equal to 3. And each of these will be cyclic again because 3 is a prime. Each of these will be cyclic, and order of non-identity element. Non-identity elements would be three non-identity elements, and their total number is now there are in order to see their total number we have to find their total number is to be obtained by choosing value of k which is not 0 because we have supposed on contrary which is not 0. Now for k is equal to 1 this will be equal to 4 and 4 does not divide 30. For k is equal to 2 this will be equal to 7. 7 does not divide 30. For k is equal to 3 this will be 10 and 10 divides 30. Now for k is equal to 3 r will become 1 plus 3 into 3 and this is equal to 10 and we know that 10 divides 30. This is very important condition. We have to have or such that or divides order of g and 10 divides 30. Therefore there are 10 three silo subgroups. Each having order 3 raised to power 1 is equal to 3. Therefore, being cyclic, we have just noted that. Therefore, total number of non-identity elements in these subgroups is now there are 10 subgroups and each subgroup has 3 elements. So taking a group has 2 non-identity elements. So there are 20 non-identity elements and each non-identity element will be of order 3. So from 1 and 2 cannot hold because 24 plus 20 is equal to 44, while in our case total number of elements in the group G is equal to 30. So 44 is much more than 30. Therefore our supposition is wrong. We suppose that G is simple and therefore G is not simple. So therefore there cannot be a simple group of order 30. Therefore there is no simple group, of order 30. So there is no simple group of order 200. There is no simple group of order 30.